When I bought my first buy-to-let, my mum, she was crying because she thought I'd done the wrong thing buying a buy-to-let in Liverpool.
Why do you think your mum felt that way?
Um,
How do you feel about the current economic climate, changing government? How has that made you feel as a landlord?
Property investing is over. When I got into property, everyone was saying Brexit is coming. The market's going to crash. Don't do it. People worry too much about things they can't control. I don't think I can control anything of what the government are coming out with. And I think it's wasting my time to think about those things.
What would you say the overall deal value that you saw since you started?
PBK podcast is sponsored by Faraway Pizza, the fastest growing pizza company in the UK. With over 160 stores, you can definitely find one near you. If you want a slice of their flavoursome pizza, then you can use our discount code PBK20 at faraway.co.uk to get 20% off. Once again, PBK20 at faraway.co.uk to get 20% off.
Welcome back to the PBK podcast. We are back podding each and every week. We have a special guest, loads of content. So if you haven't already, just do it now. Just subscribe. I'm going to wait. Have you done it? All right, let's go. Justin, how you doing?
Great, thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
In fact, we've spoken a few times and I finally got you on. Managed to drag you down, or drag you up actually, just outside Brighton.
Yep.
Been too many people coming to visit the beaches at the moment. We're stressing you out, all the Londoners that travel once a year.
I wouldn't even know it's sunny. I just hide away in my office.
Just locked in. That's great. So straight to business. So since you are a straight to business man, your company is Property X?
Correct.
Property X. And what do you guys do?
So, in short, I am a property investor, developer, and a sourcer. I started my journey about 5 years ago, and I went from near enough zero capital. It was about £16,000, and I've managed to build a property portfolio. Along that way, I've kind of done that through doing BRRs, doing flips, although when I say flips, it's like properties with no refurb, so it's more like a trade as such. So I get them for, obviously, secure them below market value, sell them for more money, I take a bit of profit in between, but also leave some for the next person. I've done several of those, and I normally take the capital, put it back into my BRR deals. From there, really, or from, I guess, over the last 5 years, I've built up Property X, which is my sourcing business. So predominantly, we are a sourcing business. We help people find great deals. And then second to that, we have an education arm, and we help people become better investors, basically.
Okay. So where did you start? Like, what was your, because that's a number of strategies. Which was your toe in the water, so to speak?
It was actually, given the fact that I live just outside of Brighton, it was in Liverpool.
Okay.
So 5 hours.
No. You're going to explain that, because I always talk about, where possible, invested areas, why Liverpool?
Yeah, good question. It was all capital based.
Okay.
So I was lacking in knowledge, lacking in capital. I was like, actually, where can I invest in the UK, which I see a future in? And, where can I buy where I've got £16,000 worth of capital? For me, that was Liverpool. I looked at multiple different areas. I felt Liverpool was kind of second to Manchester. It was going to see that growth, that boom, which it fortunately has. And I went out and bought a turnkey buy-to-let, because that's all I thought buy-to-let was.
And when it comes to doing the research, like you said, you looked at a number of different areas. What were you actually looking at? You touched on potential growth. How did you kind of measure those metrics? What was it that you looked into? You said, you know what, I'm going to decide Liverpool's the one.
It was a little bit finger in the air,
okay,
being honest, in the sense that I had looked at, yeah, that's it. I was like looking at different areas, thinking, where do I feel like has the most growth potential? But I did look at like fundamentals. So like, where has a good city centre? Where has good transport links? Where are companies moving to? The usual kind of things like that. But even when stuff like that is happening, you are still taking a risk in investing in an area like that.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things. And then the other metric really I was going off of is, where is somewhere that I can get a certain like return on investment? I've only got this amount of capital. I somehow thought that getting a property that made £250 a month was going to suddenly change my life, which it sadly didn't, but it got me on this path, which has then changed my life, really.
I think for a lot of people, like I said, £16,000 versus maybe 250. Whilst the 250 doesn't change your life per se, the concept of investing money to make money, I think, is a really good indicator of getting used to how wealth is generated. So that was your first one, buy to let, that you said quite vanilla. And where did you go from there?
From there, I was like, now I really have no money. And I'm seeing guys, because I was starting to follow people on social media more. I'm seeing guys that are doing multiple deals, but they say they don't have much money. And I kind of managed to pick up on a few buzzwords, which for me at the time, I didn't realize were a big thing, but they're obviously a huge thing, such as buy, refurbish, refinance, such as raising finance, and also sourcing. So then I was like, right, I need to find someone that I can, I guess, emulate. I need to follow their journey. So I found a really nice lad called Adam, who at the time he had about 12 buy-to-lets. He was sourcing properties and he's raising money. So I was like, can I just pay you as a mentor to learn what you're doing? And then he taught me everything he knows, basically.
I think that's interesting that like now that you're in property, I'm sure you have conversations and you're like ROI, BRRR, like BMV, and like it just comes so naturally as if you're just having a conversation about who played football on the weekend, who was their wing back, right back, etc. But was it strange when you started to hear about almost this new language, but your maybe friends, family weren't talking about it? Like how was that sort of perceived and received?
Big time. I mean, there's a story I tell, but in short, when I actually bought my first buy-to-let, my mum almost, she was basically crying because she thought I'd done the wrong thing buying a buy-to-let in Liverpool, 5 hours from home. And that was just a simple turnkey buy-to-let. So now, I'm starting to hear words such as buy, refurbish, refinance. I'm hearing raising finance. Of course, it feels really alien for me to then try and execute on raising money against property.
Why do you think your mum felt that way?
Because I guess as a family, they were brilliant. I had a really good upbringing. They always told me I could do anything I put my mind to. And I feel very fortunate to have grown up there. I have to be careful when saying that word. I once said fortunate on a podcast and people thought I came from money, but didn't come from money, but I came from a really good family of great mindset. But they're quite risk adverse at the same time. And of course, my parents are in a different stage of their life to me. They're in like wealth kind of, they want to keep their wealth, don't they? They want to not risk it and not waste it. Whereas I'm like, risk everything to make more money mode.
I think it's sometimes quite a British thing. Have you ever heard like the analogy of like the American parent versus the British parent around like tennis? And it's like, it's the American parent, the child like goes and watches like the US Open or Wimbledon and they're like, mommy, I want to be a tennis player. And they're like, I'm not going to do the accent because we had somebody fail on that a couple of weeks ago, but they're like, sure, sure, son, you can do anything. Goes out there, buys them the tennis racket, buys them the balls, the shoes, etc., and says, go for it. But the British parent, same thing, sees Wimbledon, sees Andy Murray, says, oh, mommy, I've seen this, I want to be a ball boy. And they're like, oh, it's really hard to be a ball boy. Only a few people make it, are you sure? And it's like that different attitude towards, we're quite naturally risk adverse, I think is almost like within the British culture.
I completely agree. I don't think they don't mean to do us any harm with that. It's just your parents trying to look out for you, I guess, and add a sense of realism in. But you've got to fight that because we're in a different phase of our life.
Yeah. Do you think? Because how old are you?
I'm 32.
32.
Had to think
so
about
kind of
that.
You'd fall under millennials. Is that right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
And I think millennials / But are you finding like people's attitude towards risk and just trying something and failing fast is a lot more popular in terms of people just happy to try something, give it a go. If it doesn't work, on to the next.
I think so. But I wasn't like that when I was early 20s. I was an estate agent from like 17 to about 24, 25. And I was risk adverse because I was thinking salary, career, follow that path, and eventually I might buy 1 or 2 buy-to-lets. But now looking back, I wish I'd gone all in with risk then, because at that point at 21, didn't have any mortgage, didn't have overheads, and you can always, if you lose everything, you can just reset and you've still got all this life in front of you. And it is still the same at 32. But I think I took most risk when I was about 29 or 30.
And I think definitely it is like a cultural thing. And there's like, of working in a 9 to 5, you get very much into the status quo. This is how things are done. So you go to work, get paid, you earn a certain amount of money, can save a little bit, spend a certain amount, and that's the way you operate, which there's definitely nothing wrong with it. Works for a lot of people, but it just comes down to what you want to achieve and in how much space of time. What would you say are some of the best things that came out of working in an estate agent?
Understanding the psychology of offers I would say. And I didn't realize the benefits to that until I properly became a property investor.
So what do you mean by that?
You see both sides of the coin. So you see the investor or the developer or just the homeowner trying to make their low offer, but then you've got to then present that offer to the owner. And you get to see exactly how the estate agent can take your offer sometimes. And although you've written out all this stuff, or although you've told them all this stuff, they have to present it in a way that they feel is right for that owner.
Yeah.
So sometimes things that we think are important as investors to tell the estate agent actually isn't. Or sometimes when you think you're being a bit smart as an investor and adding a caveat in, like, I'll make this offer but subject to survey, you're not really helping your case. And I realized that quite quickly. Whereas estate agents, if they get 3 offers in and you're telling them you've got caveats around your offer, that doesn't help them when positioning it forward or picking you as the buyer. So it's quite a few different circumstances where I found actually, if you can learn how to communicate with an agent and just simply give them all the information they need, make their life easy, then you're more likely to get the offer accepted.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that's one thing that kind of touched on. Maybe sometimes it can put you in a certain box, but also doing the work first means that you're in a much better position to understand the actual market and the model, and you're being paid to learn. Because you also mentioned coming out of that space and then paying a mentor to teach you how to do things. So if you can learn while getting paid, it's a really big win-win. And that's why I'm an advocate for whatever works for you. If that's your way of learning, do that. If you think you'd rather sit down with somebody and pay, but just find out what really works for you. You mentioned about being risk adverse, and I want to ask this in relation to not your personal kind of like your personal demeanor, but whether or not some of that actually comes from effectively looking behind the curtain, so to speak. Because you've been an agent, you've maybe seen the investors that have lost money or seen the investors that have overpaid. Do you ever think that made you slightly more cautious when it comes to putting offers forward?
Maybe. I think maybe it's the fact that, you see too much. But equally, I think actually I was quite privy to people that got very good deals. I used to think they've got a steal. And just to make up some numbers, they've got that at 200,000 and they bring it back to the market after refurb at 400 and there's 100 profit. That blows your mind. Yeah. When you're on $2,000 a month.
It's funny, because we had a friend of mine, Pete, and he's now an agent in Dubai, absolutely flying. But it's funny, whenever we meet up and I'm always winding him up, Pete, you're big time now. It's your fault I was here. Because he was an agent at Kinley, Folkard and Hayward. And I bought some properties for him and sold them. And he said the same thing. He said, nah, so I knew what you bought that for and I knew what you sold it for. I said, I've got to get out and go do it somewhere else where I can make more money. So I definitely think it's good sometimes to see behind the curtain and see both sides. And it's also good that you saw that and saw that as a positive to say, okay, it's actually opportunities. Because some people see it and almost can get a bit I don't know if jealous is the right word, but a little bit it's not fair, why not me? As opposed to how can I make that be me?
Exactly that. Mindset, I think, is massive in this industry and it's not talked about enough. I think that's what differentiates someone that gets maybe 1 or 2 buy-to-lets versus someone that goes and gets 20 or whatever you use as your metric of success. I think mindset's pretty much always what's behind it.
It's funny because I hear about mindset so much and it's I don't know. I do downplay mindset, but I'm also... And I think maybe it's just I don't like that word.
Got you.
Because I'm just I just want to do. I'm tired right now, but my thing is, look, you just got to do. So it's not I don't build a mindset into it. I'm just more if I want to get over there, I can't mindset myself to the door. I got to get my legs up and whether or not I got to drag myself across, you got to get it done. But I guess you can argue that's mindset, but it's fine.
Arguably, because you have a good mindset, you don't feel like you need to be told what a mindset is.
I guess it's one of those things. If you've naturally got really good cardio, somebody probably isn't going to be able to convince you on the importance of going for runs every morning to play football because you'll be my cardio is fine. So I guess, I do understand it in that concept. Okay, so you bought your first property in Liverpool, working at the estate agents, but you're now seeing more opportunities. What was your next step from then, working a 9 to 5, buying that property? Where did you go from there?
So I had actually, just before buying that buy-to-let, I'd left estate agency, went into another sales role, with the goal of, look, I'm working 6 days a week, most days till 7 in a estate agency. I need to find myself a role which allows me to do viewings on Saturdays or a bit more time around it, because I was also trying to do a clothing business at the same time, lots of other stuff. But for me, it's like, so then the journey went from leaving estate agency, I then went to work in sales, and I was like, right, how can I find a job which I don't mind, but equally I know that this isn't my long term, because that increases the pain of I have to make property or something work for me. So then I bought that first property, and then obviously learned how to do, I guess, more challenging strategies and learn how to raise money and obviously utilize that and structure that against a buy, refurbish, refinance deal. And then I went and just did a series of BRR deals. As I'm doing these trips regularly, like I'm talking about most months doing like 2 trips to Liverpool a month, staying in Premier Inns and travel lodges and what have you. I've got a friend in the area. He actually lived in Manchester, called Jack. He has a channel himself. And Jack said to me, along with another friend, but he was one of the 3 people that said to me, just don't get why you're traveling. You're doing all these viewings, you're making all these offers, but you're not necessarily reaping the rewards of all these properties. Why do you not source? Like, why have you not sourced? And I just sat back, and I guess I felt very skeptical about sourcing at the time. Like, can people really make money from that? But I thought, what's to lose? Like, I'll give it a shot, and if it does well, then I'll go into it. I'll make that my job, and that's effectively what happened. I just went for it, tried it, and within 6 months, I left my full-time work.
Okay, and the sourcing space. When you said you kind of had a little shakes getting into it, where did they come from? Like, what were you not sure about?
I think I worried about being tarnished by the brush of other people online saying that you can.
If you say that sources wind me up, there's a lot of sources that wind me up. But there's a lot of solicitors that wind me up, and I need them just as much as I need the sources.
Yeah, and I think that's it. Again, it's all about the way that you perceive something. So at the time, I perceived it as there's people selling the dream, and they're doing that through sourcing. I don't want to be tarnished by that same brush, as I say. But then someone said to me, but yeah, if you imagine that a sourcer could bring you a deal and you do that flip and you make that profit, or you do that BRR and you get all your money out and their fees included, that's a very valuable business service. So then I just went for it, and I just said, yeah, right, I'll give it a go. And if I can make it work, then it is a real thing. Yeah. And then, never look back, really.
Yeah, I'd say in that space, look, everything is a cost of doing business. And you get a lot more out of sourcing than you do from stamp duty. And you've got to pay that when you buy a property. So if somebody's going to deliver you something to your doorstep, I use the example of, when like I was a trainer guy. So when like Yeezys were super popular, of course you can go and try and enter the raffles and hunt around and do all of these things, but it tends to be how you value your time. If someone says, look, I can get you them. I'm going to do all the hard work. I'm going to make sure I get you them, but this is the price. Do you want them? And you get to determine, well, does that present good value for money for me? And I think one of the things that people do with sources too often is not do their own due diligence. They're just expecting a source they've got no relationship with to act with 100% integrity and just do the deal and give them like something on a plate, and they don't want to do any work themselves. And I think as an investor, you've always got to do your own due diligence.
Yes.
Like even I could have worked, like I've got sources that I've worked with 10 times over, but they can't send me a deal and just tell me, I've offered it for it on your behalf. Just trust me, it's a good deal. I'm still always going to do my due diligence and make sure I understand the numbers.
I don't know if you see this, but that's one of the biggest things I see, because we have now, a fairly sizable sourcing business. We've got a lot of people that want to be hands off in property, which I understand if you're working full time and you're earning good money, but you just want to put that into property. But quite often they'll come to us with the expectation that we'll just sort it for them. And what I always believe and feel is that you equally need to know that if I bring you a deal, or I bring you 2 deals, let's say, on a plate. If I bring you 2 deals on a plate, you need to be able to tell me which one of these is the better deal and for what reason. Yeah. And I think people need to hold that accountability of, even though I'm going to work with a sourcer, I need to fully understand how to do my due diligence.
Definitely. Is there, I guess it's hard on your side, like, is there anything you put in place to make sure that they know there is an element of that responsibility on them?
Yes. So I have two calls as a business process, whether it's with me or Matt that works for me on my sourcing team. We have two calls with investors prior to them working with our bespoke sourcing service, for example, where I'll literally share spreadsheets and go over numbers with them because I need them to understand exactly how we're getting to numbers and be able to ask questions. And that's why, in a way, we do the education as well, because I feel people need to become better investors. And once you know how to do it, then work with sourcers, and you'll get the most out of a sourcer. Then you get the best deal out of them if you know how to spot it.
Definitely. And what type of deals do you generally source?
Buy, refurbish, refinance is our go-to. We do flip and trade deals as well. So we work closely with like traders, companies that do a lot of cash buying in the UK. They'll bring us discounted stock and then we sell it on their behalf. And then separate to that, we also work closely with agents. We do like off-market property marketing, and we try and find BRR deals for people in either the Northwest or South Wales.
Okay. So where are your sweet spots? When you say Northwest, where are you covering?
Liverpool, St Helens, Warrington, Wigan, but we specifically like Liverpool, St Helens, so we do a lot in those territories. And then South Wales, the valleys, really. Yeah. That's where all the good deals are.
And for someone that's looking to work with you, BRR generally means, for those that are not familiar, buy, refurbish, refinance means the refurbished part of it means it needs work, which means a lot of the time it's not typically suitable for a conventional mortgage.
Yep.
What kind of level of capital would you say is your sort of minimum for people to work with you to be able to do these types of projects?
We shock people a lot when they come on calls, and because our minimum £60,000, and a lot of people might come to us with £30,000 or £40,000, say, can you source me something? I'll say, look, we can source you a turnkey investment, but we can't source you something that needs a refurb as well, because often, you've got to have that deposit, the fees, you've got to obviously be able to pay for the refurbishment and understand all the costs around it, the holding costs, the bridging costs, etc.
Because I was recently speaking to some lenders. I name them. Nah, they're not sponsoring me yet. When you're sponsoring me, by the way, at the moment, we are still looking for a sponsor for the podcast. If you are interested in sponsoring the PBK podcast, you can reach out to me on Instagram. So speaking to a lender recently, and they were basically saying, look, like, we can do loans, but we just do the numbers, and certain development facilities doesn't make sense us doing because actually a money loser. So even though they could physically do a refurb product, it just doesn't make any sense to them. So there isn't that much of wide market stuff, as you touched on, to get actual funding for the refurbishment. So generally speaking, you're saying sort of 60,000 means you've got a budget for deposit, stamp duty, cost of finance, and also a light refurb, depending on the area.
Absolutely. In an ideal world, cash buyer, and you can speed up the process. There's less hoops to jump through, but I understand that a lot of people are working with less capital than that.
Yeah. Exactly that. Give me an example of some good deals you sourced. Sell it to me. Sell me. I'm going to be the investor.
Yeah.
Why should I invest? Like, what's the deal you've got for me that I would like?
For a lot of people that we work with, it's a very similar question to them. Yeah. And for me, it always comes down to, we're providing a service and they need to understand what service they want. Is it like hands-off sort of setup where they can carry on working, they've got their family, they've got capital, and they can put that money to work? In which case, I'd be selling them like a buy, refurbish, refinance deal. And we have a very good kind of cookie cutter model where we are looking in areas that we know there's growth and we know there's certain end values. So let's take South Wales, where we're really trying to build up at the moment, where we know that by working with agents and by having someone that works for us in South Wales, who is Welsh, and that helps, we can
don't feel like the non-natives are coming and doing all the business.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And having that like inside knowledge and experience of someone living there really helps. But we can find properties that are, 60 to 70,000 in purchase price, where the refurb might be 30, 35,000, and then the end value is about 130,000. So depending on the variables, the fees, you'd be looking at about leaving about £10,000 left in, which for most people that we talk to on that basis, super happy with that. And then we introduce them to like a decent build team where they don't have to be there every week checking in. The builder takes charge and manages it correctly. That's what we do as like a bread and butter.
Yeah.
Separate to that, as I said, we also work with traders. So we get some unbelievably good deals where just this month we've sent 2 out where you can literally buy them yourself. The trader then makes their money, and then you could sell it with no refurb and make 30, 40,000. You just have to be the one to put your capital at risk, do your due diligence, etc.
Okay, we're going to get to the trading ones. I think what's interesting is, see, I speak to a lot of people in different parts of property, different parts of business, and we had an interesting conversation, a previous episode with D. Ludlow.
Yep.
And D. Ludlow now buys businesses, used to do a lot of BRRs, particularly in South Wales as well. And he exited like that space, not because it wasn't viable, but because it didn't work for him. And I just touched on that, not to say that it's not, but people often see a load of stuff online and think, well, if this person's not doing it and I like this person or look up to this person or want to emulate them, I should do what they're doing. But I think one thing I would say in property and investment is you can pretty much make anything work as long as it works for you.
Yep.
You've just got to find out, does it make sense for you based on current position, based on how much money you want to add, based on your appetite for risk and all of these things. So don't get lost in what everybody else is doing and just do what you need to do effectively. Because you've seen two people talking about same area, same investment strategy, perfect for somebody else doesn't meet their current goals.
Yes. Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that because it's very easy for someone to make a particular strategy or an area look, very appetizing and the thing that they should do. And you can kind of veer off course. Yeah. And actually an earlier lesson for me, or not a lesson, but something that I've managed to do over my time of investing is I went to the Northwest because I had little capital. And that was absolutely the right move for me. And I still buy properties in the Northwest now. But I've equally, within the last year, started buying properties closer to home. Because initially there was that belief, I can't do it. The properties are too expensive. BRR doesn't exist down here. Yeah. And then you actually, if you learn all the skills behind BRR and how to analyze those deals, if you learn that you raise money or whatever it is that you do to fund them, those deals are everywhere in the UK. Yeah. You just got to figure out what works best for you.
Yeah. That's one thing, that money is almost infinite. Like there's deals everywhere, there's opportunities everywhere. It's just your role to be able to identify them and effectively and efficiently basically extract the capital and extract the opportunity based on experience. Give me an example of like one of your favorite deals you sold.
Favorite deal I've sold?
Can be for any reason. It doesn't have to be because it made the most money. Just a deal that you liked.
From a sourcing perspective, or my own one?
From a sourcing. I mean, either or you can pick.
One of the ones I did, which I have spoken about in one video, but it's like I bought a property for 65,000 myself, and then within 4 weeks had sold it on to someone else for 90,000. Technically, there's about a £25,000 margin there, but actually, when you take out all the fees, and I actually raised investor finance for it and paid them a nice healthy chunk of that, I made about £15,000 profit. That's one of my favorite personal ones. I've done a few of those where I've made like £10,000 to £15,000 on them, and they've certainly helped boost my own portfolio growth. As a business, there's one in particular I think of that we did earlier this year where it was actually in West Yorkshire, and it was a semi-detached bungalow. And when you're brought a property from a trader, they're like so ridiculously cheap that you almost question the price of them. You're almost like, there's something's missing and we can't spot it, or what is it that's missing? So we have to do an insane amount of due diligence around it because I want to protect an investor that buys it. And it was a semi-detached bungalow. Someone was relocating and they were mid-refurb and they didn't want to put it on the market. They just wanted to close on it within 4 weeks. And we, obviously a trader, had purchased it for an even lower price, but then we sold it to our investor for 125,000. And the bungalow opposite, kid you not, it's maybe 5 to 10 square meters larger. But it looked identical, very similar layout. It sold for 240,000. That's a very good example. And we obviously charged a healthy fee on that because there was a real part of me that wanted to do that one myself, but I don't know builders in that area and I had a lot going on at the time. But that's probably one of my favorites.
It's a nice deal. I mean, obviously there's the refurb element of it, but effectively the purchase price, the potential GDV, there's almost 100% uplift, and obviously got to take out all of the relevant costs involved. You've spoken about quite a lot of different areas. So we've gone Gloucester, I think we've got obviously South Wales. We're up in the Northwest. The due diligence that you've highlighted and deal analysis, when it comes to you appraising existing market value, GDV. Talk me through your process of actually doing that due diligence.
Yeah, particularly when we find a property that comes from an area that I'm not a specialist in, or an expert, but not familiar with, shall I say. We have to go, really professional about it. So obviously we do the immediate things that most people do, which is using, whether it's Rightmove, Zoopla, one of the main portals, to look at the local sold comparables. For us, we always have to find 3 comparables that have sold within a 12-month window, within a quarter of a mile, that are similar size, similar style, and potentially, in an ideal world, similar layout, because that's what a surveyor or a valuer is going off of. Whereas I see a lot of people jump to conclusions with comparables, or they try to make comparables work for them. We have to find that as a first metric. Obviously, we then do all the typical using softwares online that we have. We look up what the area is like, what the crime rates are like, what the capital growth is predicted at, and what it's been for the last 5 years. We kind of look at a whole different element of metrics. Then we obviously run the typical deal analysis as well to make sure that it is worthwhile. But ultimately, for me, the thing that always ticks the final box is actually talking to agents, which is the bit that people are too lazy to do, but it's the best thing you can do.
Yeah, a lot of the time people want a different answer to that. Like, I've had people within the PBK community and like, but how do you analyze it, or how do you get the GDV? And I think there are some great tools you can use in some instances, but again, a lot of the data is there between your Zoopla, Rightmove portals, along with local agents, local expertise as well. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Let's talk about the kind of trading now. How is it that you trade? Talk me through your process, because you've got trading that's very much you're actually purchasing, a lot of fees involved, versus back-to-back options. And what is it? How do you tend to operate?
Well, there's obviously I've not done anywhere near like the numbers of all these actual traders. It's just something I'm getting into, and I can count on one hand how many trades I've done. But I've always done mine typically, or the first few were done as literally purchasing them because I didn't know any better. Whereas since then I have gone on to do, back-to-backs, overage clauses, etc. But a lot of traders do a combination of everything, and you have to, I think, the art to probably being a good trader, and I can't say that because I'm not there yet, but I believe the art to being a good trader is being able to fit the strategy or the model to that particular property. So some properties you are just going to have to buy super fast. You're going to have to close on it to help the owner get out. Some you might be able to back-to-back it because you've got an extra few weeks. Some you might be able to take to auction on the back end, and I think that's, for me, I guess, what makes probably a good trader. What do? I early on did a lot of direct to vendor. So letters at mass volume. Wasn't the most scalable thing, but tried it and certainly got good results out of doing that. So a lot of my portfolio is built off of writing letters to the home addresses of a landlord, and actually like a bespoke letter where it says their name, says the address of their property, etc.
What sort of volume were you sending out? How many letters do you think you sent? 2022
was pretty, like we did 20, it was 22 to 23,000 letters in 2022.
How many?
22 to 23,000 is in like generic letters.
Okay.
And we did 1,900, just under 2,000 bespoke letters. So this is for my portfolio, but also for the sourcing company.
Did you wear the letters off the keyboard?
No, yeah. I didn't quite do it all myself.
Okay.
That was probably a wrong approach to take, but I just figured, look, I've done it with a smaller sample. Now all I've got to do is just do more of it and it'll work. But you get a lot of scrap coming in with that. A lot of people, calling for random reasons or getting very angry at you or, different things. So then I moved to trying to do paid advertising. I wasn't the best at that, and it's a very expensive thing to do.
And you're competing against people with, especially in the we buy any home space, you're competing against people with very big budgets when it comes to that.
Exactly that. Yeah, like the amount they can put per click is much higher than someone like myself with a new and up and coming business. Whereas now what we do is we try to leverage more onto the companies that we work with, as I mentioned, but also actually working with agents in the area, because they know that they might they'll get double deals out of us, whether the client's going to flip it or do a refinance and rent it. We're trying to build those relationships where the agent can see the bigger picture.
Nice. What's your thoughts on the London market? Thank you to those of you who have liked, shared, commented, but most importantly, subscribed to the channel. Did you know only 28% of people that regularly watch my videos have subscribed? Now we're trying to get that to 40% so we can bring on bigger and better guests and make better content for you. So if you could do that right now, myself and my team would really appreciate it. Now back to the video.
I've just never entered it or given it enough thought. I'll say that.
Okay.
That's enough of the rest of the UK, but I think there's massive opportunity here.
Yeah.
I was saying to someone that I met just before coming here, I think the real advantage you have in London is the amount of chimney pots in a smaller space.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like when you said quarter, like if I'm looking, and not that I do that frequently, if I ever looked at stuff like outside of London, I think I'm always at like half a mile, because quarter of a square mile I think is even like a luxury in London to look at, hoping to find really good comparables.
Yes, yeah, and that's why it comes down to, like, talk to agents, because like for me they always finalize whether a deal is good or not. If you can have a good agent, that is.
So bearing in mind that you are an investor, buy-to-let landlord, how do you feel about the current economic climate changing, like, you know, government? How has that made you feel as a landlord?
You know, I disagree with some of the things that maybe come out. I think some of them may be there for the best of landlords and tenants, but overall, rather than go into, I guess, individual things and get too passionate about things,
passionate. It's your time to get passionate. Don't not get passionate. Don't get passionate after the cameras go off. Get passionate now. Which one didn't you? Which changes in manifesto were you not that best pleased with?
No, I tell you what, I want to give one thought on this, and that is that I think people worry too much about things they can't control.
Yeah.
Whereas they should just focus on things they can control. So I get messages, and you probably do too, where people are like, I've seen these landlord changes. I think I shouldn't invest in property because this is going to change everything. And I think it's a massive conclusion to jump to the fact that because these changes are coming in, that's it. Property investing is over. Because when I got into property, everyone was saying Brexit is coming. The market's going to crash. Don't do it.
Yeah.
And then I bought the first one in 2019. Then it was obviously what happened in 2020, which was a massive shock to the world. And there's always been some reason not to get involved in property. Rather than, as I say, like my passion is more control what you can. And I don't think I can control anything of what the government are coming out with. And I think it's wasting my time to think about those things.
Fair enough.
And instead think about how can I find the best deals possible.
That makes a lot of sense. Would you, or do you have any kind of goals to get into the more development space? Have you ever found that interesting?
Definitely. And I'd like to do more flips in the near future. Around myself where I live, there's a lot more opportunity to do not big developments, but as in like bungalow renovations where there's extensions and loft conversions. I've done those sort of things before, but I'd like to do that on slightly bigger scale. In terms of actually building like new build sites, I've thought long and hard about it. I don't think I'll be doing that in the near future. I've always gone down the route of, obviously you've got vertical scaling, going up in size of project, or you've got horizontal scaling. I've always taken the route of horizontal scaling because I feel like when I understand a model and I can do it, then I like to lean into it, which is why actually a lot of the time people say to me, Justin, why haven't you done SA? Why haven't you done HMOs yet? These are amazing cash flow opportunities. And my response to that is I think they are fantastic strategies to utilize, but I have learned how to find really well-priced properties and obviously do the BRR process and then rent them out. And by doing them as vanilla buy-to-lets, I can then take my time, put it back into my sourcing business because I enjoy the business side of things. And I just have really focused over the last few years on just scaling that out before I go higher up, I guess. So maybe in the future, but just no commitment to that.
Yeah, no, definitely. Look, what about you? People have asked me for a long time. So I've never done over a Section 106 agreement. So like where you get to affordable housing over 9 units.
Yeah.
I think that the largest I've done is, it was 10, but it was 9, then got an additional consent for another unit. But that's kind of where I like developing, where I find it comfortable, where I can still enjoy it. I think the larger scale projects, you're going to be massively leaning into development finance, which means as per our previous conversation with talking about the ILAs, like you're going to be PG'd up to the eyeballs, signing personal guarantees to effectively everything you've built over the last 5-10 years, however long you've been in the industry. And I just don't think I have that risk appetite.
Yeah.
Also, much like you mentioned, the cookie cutter approach. If you can find something that works and the ROI is good, is maybe even better than a larger project, why would you take the extra risk without the extra reward if you can find a way to still manage higher volume efficiently? And I think it's kind of the adage of like, do you want to be a jack of all trades or do you want to be a master of one specific niche?
Yeah, like if you look at a lot of successful, like really successful people in any industry, they've just found a model that works and they just really lent into it. They've not constantly gone, oh, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing?
Yeah.
You have to pick one focus. Arguably, I've got like 3 or 4 focuses, which is too many. I should really do one thing, and then you have much better results.
So where do you stand on like the sentiment, oh, like, you know, millionaires always have like 7 streams of income?
I disagree. I would say maybe your average millionaire that's got a couple of million in the bank, maybe they do because they've got those different streams of income and they've just been financially savvy. I think the people that you see, you know, very quickly build wealth and build, you know, tens of millions or do very, very well, I think they've just gone down like one massive focus and they've seen success in it, or they just kept working at it until they get success in it.
And a lot of the time they end up, like you touched on, like vertically integrating into other businesses, but almost as a way of bringing something else in-house. So you've got a thriving Airbnb business. Might as well employ some cleaners rather than paying externally. Now I've got a cleaning business, but really and truly your focus was on that one specific niche.
Yes. Yeah.
So in terms of sourcing deals, 'cause I saw some attractive numbers in your bio, in terms of deals and everything, what would you say the overall deal value that you saw since you started the company?
Well, we've been and helped with and assisted with, I guess, £20 million worth of transactions. So we broke that recently, and that was quite an exciting moment. Thank you.
Flowers.
I wish that was my portfolio, obviously, but it will be one day. No, it was. I think to be able to say that we've helped people buy that much property is awesome. About £14 million worth of that is attached to our sourcing business. Obviously, that's the part of the business which is the larger part, the much more successful part. Our education is more one-to-one mentorship from myself, and I help people, and the 6 million has been the properties they've gone on to buy. So that's why I say assisted, because we've helped them to go and transact that property. But we, you know, the sourcing side of the business, we've done, I think it's over 220 sourced deals now.
Nice.
First year or two was carnage, and in the sense I thought it's all about volume, but then we've pulled it back now actually, and we're much more focused around just quality deals, and we just charge a bit more of a sourcing fee.
I think that is a common denominator around a lot of businesses and their trajectory. It goes from, I need to do it, it's not starting, I finally done a deal, now it's deloads, now I need to do everything. Then people slowly realize, okay, now that I'm in a position where I've built a name, I've kind of learnt my craft, so to speak, I can now home it in a little bit and focus on what really works and focus on efficiencies and quality over quantity, and just looking at balancing that standard of living with actually making sure the business still gets done.
Yeah, I completely agree. Out of interest, have you ever sourced a deal?
Have I ever I don't even think I've ever I don't think I've ever been paid to source a deal. I think I have sourced deals. I've sourced many deals, to be like, even within like the PBK community. I'd kind of do my top picks at auction. So I'll go through it and I'll say, right, this one, go and look at lot this. They're great deals, but I don't actively source. And for me, because I built my sort of brand around doing deals, I was always very conscious that if I source, someone can still mess up the deal. And now my name is going to be associated to a deal that they messed up. And it's obviously when you've done 220 deals, if you Do you know what I mean? If you source 220 deals and 2 people mess up their deals, you still got a 99% positive feedback ratio. So it's still amazing. For me, that isn't in it full time.
Yeah.
I'm just very conscious that my name, my integrity, my brand is built around me and the type of deals that I do. And while somebody might be amazing in their own right as a solicitor, an architect, a lawyer, that doesn't necessarily mean that they can deliver in that space. So it's not something that I've done. That being said, there's actually a segue into, we do now also we've partnered with deal sources who've always sourced me deals. We brought them into our own ecosystem. So where we have like a mailing list and they always offer exclusive deals to the PBK with first refusal, we now do have a mailing list where you can get direct access to those deals as well. So if you haven't already, I know a lot of you have, but you can sign up to the mailing list and you can get exclusive access. But we're always looking to partner with other people. So we may have a conversation because obviously we focus primarily on London, but not everybody has that budget. So we also look to work with other people where we can say, okay, great. We already know you've got a great track record. You do exactly what you say on the tin. You can deliver. And if we have the investors, it makes sense to obviously do more collaborative work. I'm a firm believer in 50% of something is better than 100% of nothing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Which is great stuff. What's next for you? Because obviously you hit the milestone, 20 million. How did that make you feel when you hit that 20 million?
Really good. I mean, to an extent, like that kind of money metric, isn't everything I attach myself to. What's next for me is like I've got a lot of bigger long-term goals, which is really like in terms of meeting my own personal financial goals, my own personal property portfolio. I'd like to spend half of the year living abroad, but still manage.
Where? Come on, I like traveling.
Here we go.
You can't just say abroad and not tell me where.
So personally, for me, it's south of France.
Okay, whereabouts?
Cannes or Nice or Monaco.
Unlikely
to be Monaco.
That's a lot of money. That's what I thought. See me, I'm humble. I'm saying Thailand.
Yeah.
I'm saying Bali. I'm trying to get bang for my buck. I'm trying to slow down if I go abroad. But
I've not been there actually. I need to.
Definitely recommend both. Give you lots of top tips.
Yeah.
Okay, so move abroad half the year. Have that flexibility. Home away from home. Bit nicer weather.
Absolutely.
Stay by the coast still. You're a coastal man through and through.
I definitely am. And I think it's just that ultimate flexibility, which although I do have now, I still obviously spend a lot of my day working.
Yeah.
But it's just to be able to go, right, we're gonna go out to the south of France for 3 months. Or, for example, I just went to Bulgaria, which is not a country I'd ever thought about going to until recently. Went out there, experienced the culture, the different
That's what's so great about traveling. You go places that you think, not really you wouldn't go there, but you just wouldn't have. And all of a sudden, you've been there for 3 days. You're like, so if I move here, where would I live? And you started because you love it.
Exactly that. Like I came away thinking, actually, I definitely will be coming back here a lot. And I just want that ultimate flexibility. In order to get that, I just need to create a really good team around me.
No, of course, it's great. I had a similar experience going to Albania as well, which was lovely. So for those that don't know, how can they connect with you? I know as people are going to be watching this thinking, I've got my 60,000. Can you take my money and find me a deal? How can they get in touch with you?
Best way is through YouTube, like yourself. I have a YouTube channel with a fairly big channel. I've been running since like 2019.
Nice.
So there's plenty of videos for them to scroll through there. Instagram as well. So you just have to put my name into either of these. And
got to remind them just in case you're at the end of the video. Come on.
Thank you very much. Justin Wilkins, or you can search for Property X as well, which is my business.
Amazing. Well, we appreciate coming on. Appreciate you sharing a lot of your knowledge, expertise, your journey. Obviously, it's all about us sharing people's journeys. Hopefully, this episode has inspired you to do something productive. And when we talk about things that are productive, do you know what's really easy? Subscribing. It's free. You can do it right now. And what it does is it makes sure that we get bigger, better content each and every week. Amazing guests to help you give free information. No brainer. So if you haven't already done it, do it right now. And we'll catch you next week for another great episode.